Episode 137 of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast is the second of a three-part series on play. If you haven't listened to episode 136, you might want to go back to it first. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness Podcast is here for you. I'm your host, Alan Meisner. I'm an NSAM certified personal trainer with a specialization in corrective exercise and fitness nutrition. Let me be your coach as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. Are you ready to step it up? I'm taking on new clients at Forever Fitness Personal Training. Get me, get the community, support, and accountability. Go to forever.fitness. There's still time to get in on the 10% discount, but you need to jump on this now. In part one of this series, I went into the value of playing sports to improve your health and fitness. And I think if you go back to that episode and you listen, you'll realize that, a lot of times the skills that we have when we're older kids were kind of developed when we were a little younger. And now that we've kind of been away from the game for a while, a lot of those skills aren't there anymore. We struggle with some of the things that we used to be able to do when we were a little bit younger. A lot of that comes from just the fact that we haven't used it. And another part of it just comes from the natural aspects of as we get older, we lose muscle mass, we lose some bone mass, and we lose some other things that we can get back with the appropriate level of effort. So today I want to kind of take us back a little bit to that skill building area when we were younger kids. So, in this one, I want you to think about when you were about 7 or 10, maybe a little younger than that, maybe a little older than that, but some of the games that you played back then, do you remember Hopscotch? Who played Hopscotch? Show hands. Jacks? Dodgeball? I don't know that they let kids play much dodgeball anymore. I know we played it. It was kind of a brutal game, but it built some pretty interesting skills that I'll get into. Even something as simple as ping pong. Or the little game, the party game called Twister. Bouncy houses. Who remembers bouncy houses and how much fun we had playing in bouncy houses? Or air hockey. All of these little games that we played were teaching us little bitty skills. We didn't recognize it at the time, but as we played those games, we literally learned some skills. And those skills were not just mental skills of learning strategy or something like that. It was also an aspect of fitness. So I want to take some time today to kind of go into some of those things that we got when we were doing those exercises effectively, playing those kids' games. So imagine, if you will, you're trying to toss a rock about 10 feet in front of you and land it in a 1x1 square. You know what game I'm talking about. I'm talking about hopscotch. The object of this was to toss the rock out, land the rock into the square, and then you were going to jump on one foot through the first few jumps, then to 2 feet, then to 1 feet, then to 2 feet. And then when you got to that last square, you were standing on one foot, you bent down, you picked up the rock, you jumped into that square, and then you jumped all the way back. And that was completing that round of hopscotch. So what skills do you think that you were using while you were playing that game of hopscotch? Well, one, hand-eye coordination in getting the rock to land in a certain spot on the game board effectively. And then the second was balance, because you had to be able to balance on the 1 foot for parts of the jump. There was some agility in that there were periods of time where you were jumping to 2 feet and then 1 feet. And then because you had to jump that distance, it was a little bit of endurance and maybe even a little bit of strength as you jumped up and down, depending on body weight. Obviously, when we're 7 years old, we didn't necessarily weigh that much, but our muscles were still building strength as we did those things. So think about all those different games, hopscotch, twister, bouncy houses, and we're talking about all the different modalities of fitness. We're talking about strength and endurance and mobility, balance, hand-eye coordination, lateral speed. When was the last time you moved side to side like you would if you were playing tetherball? So when you're looking to build a skill, go back to some of the things that we used originally to build skills, and that's these little kids' games. So you can do one of two things, and I would encourage you to maybe do both. But one is consider ways that you can make little games out of the mobility that, or the modality that you want to build. So if you want to build a balance skill, don't just stand on one foot and say that's good. It is good. It does work balance, but make it a little bit more interesting. Do it while you're hopping forward, backward, side to side. Be careful with your ankle. Make sure you're using good form, but make a game out of what you're trying to do, and it will help motivate you to work just a little bit harder. But I'd like to actually challenge you to go a little bit further than that. How about you find an opportunity to go play with some other kids, or maybe even some other adults? Could you imagine what it would be like if you challenged your friends to a game of hopscotch? How much fun would that be? A good game of hopscotch or a good game of tetherball, maybe some Twister. Go buy the game Twister and see how that works. You will build more mobility and strength working through a game of Twister than you would ever have imagined that you were using back then. And I promise every one of these kids' games, every single one of them that I mentioned, will put you through the ringer. It will work you. I remember a few years ago, I had just started a job, and I always am competitive. I just can't help myself when I'm playing a game or a sport. I have to be a little bit competitive. And we were at a manager's meeting, and my boss went over to the air hockey machine and air hockey game, and I'm like, I want to play air hockey. The two of us got so competitive. It was so much fun that I didn't realize how hard I was moving. The lateral movement side to side, the front to back. I woke up the next morning, I had bruises all over my thighs, and I felt great. I felt like I had done something really, really good because of all the movement I had the night before. I didn't get the same thing when we were playing some of the other games, but I can tell you that my past playing air hockey, it was just, I was always competitive, always really wanted to be good at air hockey. And so just going back and remembering that game and getting into that game, and then again, actually not being too bad at it, I did win my fair share of those games. And so, I would strongly encourage you to start thinking about these games and some of the value of this, the reason that you should play it again versus just getting, doing some just regular workouts or training is it's relatively low cost. I mean, you can play hopscotch for the cost of a chalk, street chalk and a rock. And, you can go to parks. In many cases, parks have a lot of the opportunities for you to play a lot of these games, like tetherball, like dodgeball. And then, of course, there's specialty parks. I mean, now I've seen these great trampoline rooms. They've got these dodgeball parks that you can play in where you're not going to hurt yourself because things are padded. And the way the games are orchestrated, it's not quite as violent as it was when we were kids. But there's all these opportunities for you to get out and do these little physical things that you did when you were much younger and build back some of those skills that because of inactivity, you've lost. And so now here's an opportunity for you to make that part of it fun. In episode 1 of this series, the first part of this series, episode 136, we talked about how playing a sport will kind of give you some guidance of areas that you can work. Well, now you can actually build in fun to those parts. So even that doesn't really feel like work or training. It's literally playing another game and just knowing that you want to build lateral movement, you want to build balance. Hopscotch is a great game for building balance. It's a great game for building leg strength. And some of these other games that I mentioned earlier, ping pong, air hockey, bouncy houses, if you fit and it works, then you can take off your shoes and get out there and play in a bouncy house with the kids when the birthdays roll around. So just realize that there's a ton of opportunities for you to play the games that we used to play, have some fun, and get healthy and more fit. Playing kids games is a great way to improve on many fitness modalities. Get out there and play some games. This episode's open question: what small change are you making to improve your health and fitness? Join us at older.fitness/group to share yours with us. On the next episode of 40 Plus Fitness, we close out this series on play. Have a happy and healthy day.